I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Paraguay to introduce an address by the head of state.
Gracias.
Thank you, Mr. President of the 76th regular session of the General Assembly. It is my considerable honour to present the pre-recorded message of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Paraguay, Mr. Mario Abdo Benitez. President of the General Assembly, United Nations Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen. We meet here to tackle the most distressing problems for each of our peoples. We are responsible for ensuring that each and every speech is more than mere words, to ensure that we can generate a space for deep-rooted and sincere reflection. COVID-19 continues to teach us all a lesson. It has shown us how solidarity and empathy are vital to tackle a pandemic such as this. We have seen how countries made laudably swift progress in vaccine manufacture. But the pandemic also brought to light some realities that we need to face up to. Vaccines. It has been so difficult for many countries such as ours to have to tell our peoples that despite having made arrangements and having paid for vaccines on time through the COVAX mechanism recommended by the World Health Organization to guarantee equitable distribution, vaccines didn't arrive on time. Paraguay and many other countries were made to wait in this way. Paraguay has always stood for multilateralism because we understand that common problems, the common problems that transcend our countries, need a joint response, as is the case of COVID-19. However, we cannot conceal our deep-felt disappointment at the response of the multilateral system to ensure an effective and timely vaccine distribution. This reality must be addressed in this forum with a determination to assess what happened and to drive changes for the future. We cannot look the other way and overlook the fact that some attempted to use the vaccine as a tool, both political and ideological, at one of the most trying times in the recent history of humankind. I wish to underscore the cooperation of kindred and friendly countries which selflessly extended a hand of solidarity to the Paraguayan people through the donation of vaccines which allowed us to save lives and to forge ahead with our immunization program. Once again, I wish to express my gratitude to the governments of the United States, Qatar, India, Spain, Mexico, Chile, Colombia, the United Arab Emirates, and Uruguay for such a noble gesture. Our country will never forget it. Mr. President, the Paraguayan economy is to a large extent underpinned by the production of food for the rest of the world, and our situation as a landlocked developing country markedly and structurally influences our development. In the context of the post-pandemic recovery, this situation will once again be decisive, and it will be vital to facilitate the effective access for our products to markets in the most developed countries. For our part, to lessen the impact of this situation, we are making strides to transform our geographic location into an advantage. The ambitious Bioceanic Corridor project that we are working to advance will cross Paraguayan territory and will join the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific. It stands as a clear example of how we plan to harness our geographic location and promote the physical integration of our region. Integration and sustainable development are major priorities of the foreign policy of the Republic of Paraguay. Decades ago, my country advocated an energy matrix based on clean and renewable energy, committing to care for the environment and convinced that energy is a crucial requirement to continue to forge ahead with development. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is linked to the current water crisis affecting our region. The low water levels recorded in rivers are compromising the availability of water for human consumption and affecting navigability conditions. The situation is further seriously harming our foreign trade, which depends on waterway transport and threatens the efficiency of our sources of energy generation. Therefore, we underscore the importance of honouring the international commitments made within the Paris Agreement, and particularly those referring to climate financing, and that to support the mitigation and adaptation efforts of developing countries, particularly those of us who are most vulnerable to global warming. Mr. President, terrorism, drugs trafficking, and transnational organised crime are real threats for the international community. Thus, Paraguay is committed to directly financing their funding and, in particular, money laundering. To that end, we have taken steps such as updating our legal frameworks in order to build our institutional response capacities and to bolster international cooperation to effectively address this scourge. One of the greatest atrocities of organised crime is the use of children in their activities. Paraguay once again condemns this despicable practice, which we have already suffered from. We further condemn the use of inhumane acts such as kidnapping and extortion. Our government will not let up in the firm and decisive battle against criminal groups in accordance with the law. We will spare no efforts to ensure the return of Paraguayan nationals kidnapped by these groups. Our country defends life, families, and human rights. Mr. President, as a founding member, Paraguay reaffirms its support to the United Nations, and we reaffirm the organization's importance as a forum for convening most countries around the world. In order to buttress democratic governance and to ensure a more balanced decision-making system within the United Nations, we believe that the role of the General Assembly should be enhanced and the reform of the functioning of the Security Council must be considered. Universality is a basic principle of our organization. On the basis of that principle, we support the inclusion of Taiwan within the United Nations system. Mr. President, the ideal of a world in which peace, democracy, respect for human rights, freedoms, and security reign is an ideal that binds us all. Putting aside differences and respecting the principle of equality that assists all states, we must further dialogue aimed at driving action to reduce poverty and inequality, to promote a more equitable development. I conclude noting what Pope Francis wrote on the very theme of this assembly. He wrote, "Hope is bold. It can look beyond personal convenience, the petty securities and compensations which limit our horizon. And it can open us up to grand ideals that make life more beautiful and worthwhile. Let us continue to advance along the path of hope." Thank you very much.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Paraguay for the statement just made.